Welcome to Dream Farm. On today's episode, I want to talk about what happens when you burn dead cedar trees. Dream Farm is brought to you by Whitetail Institute, research equals results. Hunt Stand Pro Whitetail app. Hoyt Archery. Stealth Cam trail cameras. Wildlife farming. And PH Outdoors food plot drills. One of the main challenges I've got on this farm is figuring out how to manage these pockets of mature cedar trees. And I've got some pretty good sized areas, and these aren't wildlife friendly. You know, the whitetail deer don't use them, the rough grouse aren't living in there. You know, it just doesn't produce value for this property. So I've got to find ways to get rid of them. I got to clear these cedar trees out. It's too steep. Nobody wants to come in and harvest these trees. So I've got to drop them and then find a way to clear them afterwards. And obviously burning is one great solution for doing that. But my question has always been, am I going to start a canopy fire in the cedar trees that are still standing? Am I going to damage the nearby oak trees by creating too much heat? So during this last fire, I had a couple of cedar trees that went up, and I was able to watch those at fairly close range to see how they behaved. And they flared up. They created more of what you might call a flash fire. And it didn't last long, and it didn't seem to do much damage to any of the structures around them. For sure, the nearby cedars didn't go up, so there was no canopy fire risk. So I thought, I'm going to take this one step further. That fire is dead and out. I'm coming back in a couple of days later, and there's still some areas that didn't burn on the first go around. Some pretty nice piles of these dead cedars, and I'm going to torch them today just to see what happens. It's 2 days after we burned, and I wanted to come back in here and try to reignite some of the spots that didn't burn when we made the first go round. So we've got the black line, the fire break burned all the way around this entire perimeter, and it's plenty big enough that no fire is going to jump it. So we can go pretty much anywhere in the middle and try to light it up again. I thought it would be educational to see what happens when you put fire to those little juniper bushes. Those things are like made out of gasoline. They just went crackling and burning. Now I've got a couple of these dead cedars here right in front of me. I want to show you what happens when they go. And we've got an exit. If they get a little bit too hot, we can bust out the bottom here with no problem. We're not going to get trapped in here. I hit a couple of them when I was coming around 2 days ago, and they really flare up fast. It's almost like a flash fire, then it drops back down again, maybe about 5 seconds or so of pretty intense heat. My fear was that it was going to create too much heat, either to kill oak trees that are above them, or potentially create a canopy fire in the cedar trees that are above them. But neither of those things happened that I could tell, because like I said, it flashed so fast. So we're going to try to get one started here someplace. We got a pile of them up through here, but there's just so little fuel on the ground. There's no leaves. There's really nothing here that will burn, unfortunately, which is the biggest problem you've got with some of these timber fires, is just getting them to carry through, because there's nothing here to burn. So we might have to go up a little ways and find some leaves, but that's what I want to show you in this little short segment, is what happens when these cedar trees, these old, dead, couple-year-old cedar trees catch fire. Okay, let's back off. If it goes, it'll go fast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It definitely makes a difference how much humidity there is, how dry the ground is. Today the humidity's in the low to mid 30s, and we've had a couple of days of pretty warm temperatures. 2 days ago this didn't burn. We've hit the spot now where it burned in from our top burn, back burn, whatever you want to call it. The fire break we made around the top of this worked its way down to here. So it came most of the way down, but any spot where the fuel was thin, where there was like not very many leaves and not much on the ground, it was just too moist to burn through that. Whereas today, it's not really carrying that great either. You can see a little bit of it starting to go out. When the wind was pushing it, it was rolling up through there pretty good, but now it's starting to fizzle. It's tricky. You know, it's either feast or famine. It seems like it burns like crazy, or it just kind of fizzles along. And I'd say we got a little burning like crazy down there a little ways.
By those cedars, definitely.
Yeah, where those dead cedars were, that's really popping and cracking there. But up in here, it's just kind of fizzling through these leaves. And after it was all said and done, a couple of days later, I came back and walked in there just to give you a close-up view of what it looked like after these cedar trees burned, and show you how much damage, you know, potentially would be done to the nearby trees. I flew the drone over it so you could see what it looked like. I was impressed by the fact that the fire took out a lot more of those trees than I expected. It turned them into ash, burned out a lot of the smaller branches. So what had been more kind of like an impenetrable wall of dead cedar trees now opened right up. Sunlight can get to the ground. We're going to get, you know, fresh growth, new vegetation. The deer can move through it now. The ruffed grouse could, you know, scamper around underneath these trees. So this looks like a viable solution. It looks like the way that I'm going to manage these mature cedar trees in the future. Cut them down, let them dry for a couple of years, and then burn them, and you know, remove the majority of the, you know, the tree trunks and the branches at that point. I've got another patch that we cut down last spring, a big area. There might have been a few hundred cedar trees in one pile, and I'm going to run fire through that here in the next few weeks, and then I'll show you what happens in that situation, because that's 1 year out. Should be dry enough to burn, no doubt. I mean, it'll torch. I just want to see how completely it burns, and then if it does any collateral damage to other trees in that area, because I'm sure that will produce more heat. So there's the potential that it could maybe damage some of the oak trees that are, you know, in that same area. So I'll bring you that episode here in the next few weeks, but I thought you might get a kick out of seeing, you know, what happens when we take the aggressive management standpoint on these cedar trees. You know, I know it's been a topic of debate here on the channel. I've had a lot of viewers, asking, why do I even want to cut them in the first place? And then a lot of opinions on what will happen when I try to get rid of them. So hopefully that answers a few of those questions. Well, I appreciate you joining me. I'll see you right back here again soon for the next episode of Dream Farm. And remember to always dream big.